Wattam is something that I believe is impossible to describe fully in order to do it justice. On the one hand, it seems like acid trip the game, but on the other hand, there is a deeper message behind all of that. As with the creator's previous games, there's a deeper message behind the cheery exterior. What is that message, and does it succeed in getting it across? We'll get into that later, but first let's talk about a few other things to start with. First off, the game is a puzzle game that revolves around solving the problems of the characters that inhabit the world. You solve one person's problem and two more people pop up with their own problems. Rinse and repeat. You do this all to make a happy world where everyone can dance around and explode in peace. While certain problems can just boil down to bring one person here and I'll stop crying, there are a few that mix things up, which is greatly appreciated, especially near the end of the game. I personally felt things get really monotonous gameplay-wise and felt really drained playing sometimes. Things are made worse by certain issues on the technical side as well. The camera is just such a shit show. It constantly gets stuck behind things in cutscenes and is almost always too far away or too close. Plus the game's controls are just really awkward at times, especially with the climbing, which kind of blows. Yeah, so climbing is actually a pretty important part of the game, and there's two ways to do it. Option 1 is just to run up to something and automatically start climbing it, and option 2 is just to double tap the jump button. Why are there two options? I have no idea, but one of them really does suck. When you can climb everyone and everything, you'll constantly start climbing things just by running into them, which is a minor inconvenience at first, but when it happens constantly, you'll get annoyed very fast. This all sounds really bad, but is almost overshadowed by the game's completely wonderful aesthetic. The characters and their designs are just so charming, I can't help but love them all. Don't even get me started on the game's soundtrack, which is an absolute jam. From the simple opening theme to the credits song, the music ensures that there's never a dull moment. While many of the problems are super simple to solve, the way the characters act and carry themselves really makes them more fun than they should be. Near the end of the game, I did feel just sort of a want for the game to be over already, but with an actually quite touching ending, I do wish there was just a little bit more. So what's the message of Wattam? Well, it's about forming connections through barriers such as language and race, but also about how we should appreciate things for how they are. At the very least, that was my interpretation of it from the little bits of story and dialogue you get from the game, which is quite cute. I adore the game's more cutesy aesthetic, but recognize that rather than being a mask for the deeper message, it's instead used as the main way to get the message across, which is a double-edged sword of sorts. On the one hand, it makes the message easier to see and understand, but also makes it less impactful overall. Would I recommend Wattam? It depends. If you're a fan of Kiita Takahashi's previous work, then I would certainly say yes. If not, I would be hard-pressed, as it certainly seems really niche. But if you learn to love the game's weird acid trip aesthetic, I think you'll have a decent time despite the game's flaws on the technical side of things. I'm giving Wattam a 7.5 out of 10.